helpful resources. There's, Amy has put them on the iPad for volunteer use, but also Dawn has some hard copies here. I have an extra one. Did you need one?
I'd love to glance at it, but I don't have to take it.
You can keep that.
Thank you.
Then the only reason that I put it on the iPad, Bobby, was I can imagine, it would allow you to get real close.
Right.
In a way that the handout,
So on the
just quite what
resources,
you do.
Right.
you have, so Dawn's going to talk about, this is her condition report. So the reason why we wanted to have that interpretive focus for this training on conservation, with Dawn's expertise here to help with that, is because this piece clearly has some conservation issues. So it's new. We just got it recently. Came to us through Collector Circle, and it really needs to be conserved. So take a close look and see some of what some of these things are. So the general resources, there are two videos that Dawn recommended to us, and they're both really good. One is from the Lunder Conservation Center, and the other is from Winter Tour, Paintings Conservation. The first one is really good for vocabulary. The second one's much better for talking about the layers and the kind of what's going on with the different layers and the painting. But I'm going to let Dawn take over, because she can point out things that your visitors will notice, and I'm sure you will notice if you get close enough too.
So after we had an internal conversation about whether or not we should even display it, we decided that it would be a good educational experience for people to see the difference between the conserved painting and this one. And when it comes into the museum, we do a condition report, and we don't just report on the surface of the painted surface, we report on the whole composite object, from the frame, which you can see here is badly chipped, the gilding is scratched, it's maybe not even the original frame. When it arrived at the museum, the canvas literally fell out of the frame. So we did some remedial work right away just to put it together. And then on the back of there's an auxiliary structure. It's the stretchers. And we saw that the stretchers had been torqued. And if you look up in the corner here, you can see the wrinkled corners. And it's called a draw. And that's a result of maybe heavy restoration work on this side on the paint, and a combination of that with the torqued stretcher. So then if you look all along here, there's a crack that goes the extent of just three sides. And then there's also a bad mechanical dent and many, many areas of loss that a conservator would then consolidate the loose pieces of paint and then fill in and paint it over. And then if you look with a raking light, you can see the craquelure, especially on this figure here. And any areas that are lifting would be consolidated, and any areas of loss would be painted, infilled with reversible paint. And then the whole piece would be cleaned, the old varnish would be removed, and a new varnish would be put on. So during that conservation process, there'd be some investigation. Some people are saying, some previous conservators who have looked at it say there's a overpainting here, that he had painted one scene and changed his mind and painted another scene.
Because of that sort of circular pattern in there?
I don't see it myself, but with an X-ray, we would be able to see through the surface paint to the back, and then we could see exactly what's going on. And also, we would be able to look at this edge carefully and determine whether it was a piece of canvas that was added on, which right here it actually looks like it could have been, or if the canvas had been folded or and another frame had been put on it, or any number of reasons for it.
So who would do that? Somebody like Carmen?
Yes.
Is he still?
His center is still up and running in Denver.
Yes.
He's trying to retire a little bit.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
but yeah, this will most likely go down to Denver after it gets done here this summer.
So a paintings conservator would do the investigation as a team with a research scientist and probably a frame conservator too.
Could you speak for a minute about restoration versus conservation?
Conservation, well, the simplest way.
Yeah.
Conservation would be a more scientific approach, and it would be reversible so that we could retain the authenticity of the original piece. Restoration might be, it might exclude the investigative work and just make it look better. And the whole idea for both of them, restoration and conservation, would be to stabilize the piece.
So we prefer conservation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where does something like this come from? It was in another place and somebody saw it or found out that it could be...
It was in the Glenbow Museum originally, just like the lions. Both of those were in the Glenbow Museum.
I remember that one. Oh, okay.
And then as they were going through their collection and focusing it more on Canadian material, they had a couple of sales. And this sold in the 1970s to the dealer that owned it from that time forward. And so I went to New York and saw it last spring in this guy's townhouse in the Upper East Side, and thought it shouldn't be in his townhouse, it should be here at the museum. Luckily for us, this is not a home-sized painting, and it's also a subject that lots of museums wouldn't be interested in. So it sat around in his gallery for a long time.
Wow, interesting. And it's in Glenbow.
Yeah.
So it's all right. Super cool. That was a great trip. We were able to go to the Glenbow and see not only what they had, but then all the stuff in the basement and everywhere. That was a fun trip.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think
great.
there was like one more art. We didn't talk about the Thayer, right?
Oh,
Did you want to point that out?
Yep.
Because that is, so in answer to an earlier question, Bobby, most of these are permanent collection pieces. Some, quite a few on loan from Laney, and then these are on loan from, I can't remember.
This is on loan from the estate of Abbott Henderson Thayer, and this is the person who's in charge of it. So Abbott Henderson Thayer was painting about the same time as Frank Benson. Became really interested in the protective coloration of wildlife, and his argument went way beyond anybody else's. He argued that every single animal was adapted to have protective coloration in the wild. Even a peacock with its crazy wild feathers. He painted some paintings that show the peacock blending into the landscape. So even though he went far afield from what we think about today, his writings and paintings were really influential, especially in the development of camouflage and military camouflage. So the movement to create camouflage that wasn't all one color came straight out of him, because he said animals with these different color patterns are much harder to see in the wild than animals with one straight color.
I remember seeing things by him.
So there's a bunch of these in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. and then there's some left over in their estate. And so we were able to borrow these.
Wow.
Yeah.
He probably did junior duck when he was young.
Yeah. Back in 1859.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So.
Oh, and I hadn't seen these from Bart Walter either.
So these are field studies that he did in the field, and the same is true of the Lars Janssen sketches. And then I'm not sure if they're true of Lainey's, or if those are her design ones or her field ones.
Yeah.
I think they're
her
design.
design
Yeah.
ones.
They're her design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She doesn't.
Because they're pretty
she-
precise.
Yeah, she takes more
Photos.
photos first, and she doesn't. She does most of her. I mean, as far as I can tell, exclusively inside her painting. She does inside. She otherwise takes photos.